Hello and welcome back to the channel. You've seen the title, you know why you're here. It's The Last of Us. The new HBO show is out, and me and a special guest will be talking all about the first episode, breaking it down, giving you our reactions, and just letting you know our general thoughts. Plus, if you stick around to the end, I will give you all the information for a special Last of Us giveaway where you can win some Last of Us goodies. But without further ado, let's jump right into the conversation. So let me introduce you to our guest today. He is 1/3 of the Filmbusters podcast, and you may recognise him from the Better Call Saul chats we had on the channel. He is Ben. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Francis. It's good to be here with you again, man. This is becoming a regular thing now.
So I think we should give the viewers just a bit of context about our relationship with the game, not with each other, with the games. So I will start briefly. I am a massive fan, much like I was Better Call Saul. I loved the first game. I think it was one of the first games I properly fell in love with, so that's like kind of why it has a special place in my heart. Yeah, for me, I always loved the story, which is what people always go on about. As far as gameplay goes, I think it probably wasn't groundbreaking, but I just love the story. And then the second one I loved as well, but we won't go into spoilers or anything. But yeah, how did you feel about the games?
Well, do you know, it will probably come up in the episode because there's some similarities to watching the episode and my experience of playing the game. But I kind of never made it past the first, I would say, 3-4 hours of gameplay. And it wasn't because I hated it. I certainly didn't hate it, but I felt I was sold something from the off with the game. That very quickly changed, and when the time jump happened, essentially, I was like, this feels very familiar. And it felt like it was getting old too soon. Now I know that everyone loves it, and I'm sure that I probably needed to just persevere a little longer to get a hook. Alas, I did not do it. But my wife started playing the game, and I would jump in now and then to see what was happening, and it looked fun. But I don't regret my decision not to.
Yeah, that's fair. I do understand it. Like I said, I feel like the gameplay isn't necessarily amazing. But it sounds like you also didn't care too much for the story either.
Well, to be honest with you, mate, I can't remember how far into the story we got. Right. I kind of feel through like cultural osmosis, I've learned stuff about the story more than when I was when I was playing it. I feel like I've picked things up in the zeitgeist.
And so, do you feel like you were excited for the show, or were you kind of not bothered?
No, I was certainly not bothered.
Wow!
But I was not bothered. However, I'm excited to. This is exactly why I'm excited to be doing this with you, because it comes from a place of this is not two people that are like hyped up, ready for it. Oh yeah, this is going to be amazing. It's a case of this is very interesting because you're already in through the door. They got you in through the door. You're ready to love it. And I'm the reluctant. Let's see what happens here. So I'm going to be very interested to see what our stance is.
Yeah, you get both sides of the coins here. So I think for this series, what I'll do is I'll just run through the sort of episode breakdown, and we can just chime in and react where we want.
Yes.
We start with a cold open, I believe it's called. And on a television talk show in 1968, epidemiologists, is that how you say that?
Epidemiologists, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Newman and Dr. Shonis, I'm not going to pronounce that right, discuss the possible causes of a potential mass global pandemic. Newman suggests fungi such as cordyceps are a much graver threat than any bacteria or virus, given the lack of treatment or cure. The other doctor points out the impossibility of the fungal infection due to the internal heat of human bodies, but Newman suggests that the fungus could evolve to overcome this weakness due to global warming, at which point humanity would not survive. Ooh.
It's ominous stuff.
So it's so ominous. I thought this was a brilliant way to quickly explain the sort of premise behind the show and the zombie outbreak, even though they don't call them zombies, but it's basically zombies.
Yeah.
I thought it was really I mean, it's not exactly genius or anything, but in terms of just quickly, like the format of a talk show with a debate, two opposing scientists, it's like quickly done. I thought it was really a really good way to just describe all of that quickly. And yeah, like I say, it was very ominous and very chilling. It gave me sort of Chernobyl vibes, because obviously Craig Mazin wrote Chernobyl. Yeah. Similar sort of vibe I got, lots of bleakness.
Certainly with that opening. the Chernobyl vibe was there. I didn't realise until after watching the episode that it was by the guys who did Chernobyl. And I was a bit surprised because I didn't actually find it to be that similar. But that opening, for sure, you can see why someone somewhere decided now is the time to make the Last of Us TV show, because they ground it in that opening scenario. Okay, they say it's not a virus, but it is very much responsive. They use that word pandemic many times. They're talking about global warming. They're essentially saying now is the time for us to tell this story. It's never more relevant. But interesting that they did lean into the idea of it not being a virus. So they didn't want to commit to it being a commentary on what we've just been through. It's a case of we're having fun with this still.
Yeah. Fungus.
the fungus.
Do you know what's funny? I spent all evening yesterday I made a little short reel just because I had a bit of divine inspiration.
You love a reel.
I do. They're quite quick to make. But so I made one about the title sequence, which we can talk about in a sec. But I had a very stupid moment. For some reason, I just thought like fungus and virus were interchangeable. So half of the video I'm saying virus and half of it I'm saying fungus, and I've posted it everywhere. And I woke up this morning and loads of the comments are saying it's fungus, not virus, which is very annoying.
All the video game purists getting very cross at you there.
Yeah, exactly. And the epidemiologist purists, obviously.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I thought it was good, and because you have to as well. I have to appreciate that some people watching, a lot of people watching, aren't going to know anything about the story. So I thought it was a really good way. And like you say, they context it and ground it with what we've kind of just been through. We were in that situation. And obviously it wasn't as dangerous. The COVID killed people, obviously, but you know what I mean? But you're kind of sat there thinking, oh, these people don't know what's coming, in the same way that we had that feeling, back when Boris was doing his bloody little press talk going, oh, it's just a flu. Do you know what I mean?
And how quickly that all took off. We were all expecting it to be, oh, yeah, this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. And then within a couple of months, we're in a 2-hour queue to get into a supermarket to get what dregs we could. It almost, there were times when it felt like, are we entering the end times here?
I know.
Where does this go?
Yeah, I know. And then 3 years later, you shaved your hair off, you're 3 years older, and you're like, what happened?
What happened to my life? Where's it gone?
What happened? I was 24 when I went into the pandemic, and gosh,
mate,
approaching the 30s.
They were very smart to ground it in that way, but I also liked that it didn't feel too sobering. It wasn't like beating you over the head with it in the opening, that we are really going to be doing a commentary on what you've been through. This is a very serious show, because ultimately everyone knows what it's about.
Yeah.
I think we'll see how it goes, how the rest of the show goes, but I feel like, without having played the entirety of the game, that in order to get the most out of the show, you have to treat it equal amounts serious and equal amounts we're just playing around here, because when you've got a fungus monster, if that's what they're called, clickers maybe.
Clickers, yeah.
I think you can't be too serious about it. But you can say serious things. Also, can I just say, John Hannah in that opening scene, John Hannah, that's the strangest bit of casting, because he's used to be quite big in Britain anyway, in British cinema and television. They just picked him to be that doctor who is clearly no longer going to be in the show, because that was back in the 60s they filmed that.
Yeah,
that was meant to be from.
Yeah, 63, I think it was 68.
Where they got him from and dragged him out from to just make that cameo appearance baffles me. But I was glad to see him.
Yeah, I did think that, I enjoyed seeing him as well, because I kind of remember him from the Mummy films. He was like the sort of comic relief, I think.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Let's move on. So we then get the title sequence, which you can watch my reel.
I look forward to that.
Where I say virus instead of fungus.
Excellent.
So we have the title sequence, and then we find out we've jumped to 2003. And interestingly, the game takes place. Well, the current time bit in the game was 2013, but I think they've done that so when they jump forward again, it's present day, so it's 2023.
Yeah.
But so we jump forward to 2003, and Joel lives. We find out Joel lives with his daughter Sarah, and his brother Tommy comes over. They're in Austin, Texas. Sarah pays to repair Joel's watch for his birthday. She falls asleep watching a movie, and Joel leaves to bail out Tommy, who got into a fight and is in jail. Sarah wakes up some hours later to discover one of her neighbours is dead and acting cannibalistic.
Yeah, just a bit.
Joel returns home with Tommy and kills the creature. And as Joel, Tommy, and Sarah flee through crowds of terrified people, debris from a crashed airplane strikes and overturns Tommy's truck. Joel tries to run for the river with Sarah, but is cornered by an armed soldier who shoots them. Tommy kills the soldier, but Sarah is fatally wounded and dies in Joel's arms. Oh,
heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff. That is, I mean, that's the moment, the Last of Us moment, Sarah dying in Joel's arms. That's what, video game purists or fans of the game, that's what you kind of talk about. It's the iconic scene. But before we get there, let's kind of jump back a bit. Firstly, kind of the casting, but the relationship with Pedro and Sarah and Tommy. Like, how did you feel like that worked?
So I couldn't remember the character of Tommy, to be honest. I could 100% remember the relationship between Joel and his daughter. What's her name? Sarah?
Sarah, yeah.
Yeah, I could remember that. A change in casting, obviously, because in the game it's a white girl with like trimmed blonde hair, and they've gone for a person of color to be his daughter instead this time, which is obviously just a case of we're going to put our fingerprints on it. We're going to keep the original as is, but we're still going to put our personal touch in it, which I was in favour of. I liked the dynamic between the two of them when he comes home from work and she's got his watch there. She levels to him about the fact that she repaired it with his own money, but he was never going to do it. I liked the sort of banter there. I liked the DVD being put on. It sort of grounded their relationship. But the whole time that I was watching that scene, I was so distracted by the glass window behind them because I had memories in the game of some terrible thing happening with that glass behind them. So I couldn't focus on what was an earnest moment between father and daughter. I kept waiting for something to happen.
Do you know what? I think you're getting a little bit confused because there is a glass window bit, but it's not at that bit where on the sofa. It's later on.
Okay.
But it's when she comes down. This is why you need me here.
Exactly.
It's when she comes down at night. She's kind of walking through the house and someone smashes through like the conservatory door and then Joel comes and shoots the person. Do you know what's funny? So I didn't hate it. I didn't hate that moment on the sofa, but it was word for word the same dialogue from the game. Which
interesting.
Just that little bit where she's like, I sell drugs, hardcore drugs, and it's like, oh yeah, you can start helping with the rent or whatever he says. And then he listens to the watch and thinks it's broken. Like, it's all fine. It's not a problem. But for me, I found it quite jarring because I've played the game so many times, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm in this bit now.
See, so here's something generally about video games which work well cinematically. Like, okay, The Last of Us is a good example, but something like Uncharted as well, and which obviously just had a film adaptation, and even those more movie-style games where it's like a choose-your-own adventure, like Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human. The big selling point, the thing that people really compliment them on is how movie-like they are. It feels like you're watching a movie, and it's true until you adapt it. Because I know exactly what you mean. Funny enough, I didn't feel it in that scene, but there were other moments, like, for example, when a little while later, when they're driving in the car and they pass the burning house, I do not know if that line of dialogue is in the video game, but 100%, as I was watching it, I'm like, that's from the video game.
Was it like someone else will come or something?
Yeah. Someone else will come, but also, that's so-and-so's house burning down.
Oh, yeah,
it's like, that, it doesn't... In the real world, people, when you see people actually saying it on screen, something about it didn't 100% ring true.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to jar me out of it but you're much more familiar with it all. So I can see why it would do that.
It's a minor thing. I wouldn't say it as like an issue or a problem with the show, but it was just something that I noticed. There were those, and it happened a few times like there, where I kind of felt a little bit jarred.
What did you think of when she first woke up? Because when she first woke up, I thought, are we seeing video game footage for a second here? Because it was a sort of soft focus on her, which didn't feel like it was real. It felt like it had been tinkered with.
Well, do you know that's the actress who plays Sarah is Tandy or Thandie? I don't know how you say it. Newton's daughter. Which kind of
really
makes sense now, doesn't it? Because it's like she looks very similar.
She does look a lot like her. Interesting. Is she British then?
Must be. Yeah. Oh, I don't know, but But yeah, it's funny you say that, because the first shot is before she wakes up is sort of like the window with the wind blowing the sort of curtains, which is the loading or like the menu screen for the game.
Of course it is. It feels like a fucking pause menu. Yeah, of course.
That was it. So that was like a little nod, but I quite enjoyed that.
I like that too, yeah.
Let's go. So one strange thing I noticed, and I've kind of had a quick look on Reddit to see what people are saying. Sarah's at school and the girl's fidgeting her wrist and the light keeps flashing in her eye. Bit strange.
Yes.
Did you
good spot there?
Yeah, I didn't really know what was going on. Someone guessed maybe this is like the early sign of people starting to get infected. You know, maybe she's got some sort of twitch or something. I don't know. Or maybe she's just an impatient kid. I don't know, but it was a bit strange.
If that's the case, then I must be infected. I am such a nervous twitcher. I'm doing that all the time.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I'd forgotten about that. So presumably that's not in the game. So it's not going to have like a future bearing. That makes sense, though. The sort of nervous twitching.
And so one thing I would say, and if that is some sort of sign, I thought they did a really good job at slowly filtering the I was going to call it a virus, slowly filtering the fungus, the outbreak through. So you've got Sarah at the watch shop, and I think as she goes in, 2 police cars and a fire truck go by. It's like, it starts off with just that 2 police cars, fire truck, and then it slowly, by the end, works up to, fighter jets flying overhead later on. And I think it's nice and gradual. And I really appreciate that it wasn't, she walks into the shop and there's a zombie. Because it's like, it seems just so, cliche. So I really like that they did that. And so you've also got, she gets told to leave by the wife of the shop owner. And then obviously later we find out Tommy gets into a fight on the phone call and he's like, this guy went crazy, it wasn't my fault, blah, blah, blah. And then...
You're right, they do really slow drip it through.
Yeah. So then when it happens, and again, it's the same feeling with the opening, you know what's happening, so it makes it more, you're like, oh God, no, it's happening, and it's you're kind of on the edge of your seat almost, because you know what's coming.
I wonder if people who haven't played the game at all, watching that, felt the same. If they felt the information was slowly being telegraphed through and were keeping up with it, or if it suddenly took them aback when she goes next door and her neighbour's sucking on the other neighbour's face.
With the weird like tendrils, I think they're calling them now.
Yeah, like roots?
Yeah, that's
some sort of roots or something coming through the mouth?
Yeah, that's a change they've made for the show from the game. Because in the game it's spores, so it's like breathing in the air. But I guess...
So are there stages to the... I mean, maybe that's a spoiler. I don't know. But from memory and from what I've seen, what we saw in that opening is not what you mainly play against in the game.
So, yeah, there are... Well, in the game, sure, you're right, there's stages, but there's like initial infection and then it slowly overtakes your body until, later on we see that person stuck against the wall. And that's like, I guess, completion. So it does come in stages. But in the game, it was spread through spores, which is obviously just in the air. But I guess for film, it's kind of more difficult to illustrate that. So they've changed it to these tendrils, which come out the mouth, which look gross.
They do look gross. They did have a couple of shots in it of... I mean, maybe it was just dust in the air, but it kind of looked like spores, like, that extreme high contrast close-up on a curtain or something, but in the air you could see it all moving. The other thing that was terrifying, the terrifying moment, is when Sarah's back's turned and the old lady neighbour next door starts sort of like twitching and like her head flicking back and forth. That was horrible. Because, and again, that's because I know what the clickers are like. If I didn't know what the clickers were like, I wonder what I would think of that.
It's funny as well. You just knew straight away because in the game, I don't think it's like it's a neighbour. The first person you see that changes. Right. It's not like an old lady, but as soon as you see that old lady in the chair, you're like, she's gonna turn. She's gonna become the cannibal creature.
Yeah, of course.
I actually thought her in the chair doing like the head spasms, I guess you'd call it. I thought it was a little bit cheesy. I don't know. I'm not sure how much I liked it. I know.
Look at this, France. Already, here we go. The 2 key things that I've said I really quite liked. You were like, I'm not sure about.
I know. It's strange, isn't it? It's funny. But that's what it's all about. I did, exactly. And again, a lot of the stuff I'm saying, I didn't hate it, but I just thought like, it's a bit cheesy. But it was fine.
Such a purist on that.
Yeah. So let's talk about the car scene quickly, where So Sarah's kind of been attacked, and Joel smacks the grandma with, what was it, a wrench or something?
It was like a wrench, yeah.
And then they get in the car, and this is direct from the game, that shot where you're in Sarah's perspective. And I think, and again, actually, I was going to mention this earlier, but a lot of this, well, all of it really is from Sarah's perspective. And for the audience, but you know what's coming, but I think it's being in her perspective from a child's view, it makes it all so much more like terrifying. Whereas if you're in Joel's perspective, and it's the same with the game. So, but I think that was like a really smart decision. Anyway, we get in the car, and we kind of Sarah's point of view, and there's that scene, you know, they drive past the house on fire and they leave the family. I actually quite liked the bit as well when they get in the car, the neighbor comes out and Joel's like, get back in your house. He's like really aggressive. Well, not aggressive, but do you know what I mean? He's
well,
conviction.
You can already see
saying
there why he's able to survive what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
What do you think about the fact that Joel decides to drive past that family?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it has bearings in the game in terms of his character, but how do you view that decision?
So I think, and this is something the show I think did really well, more so with Joel than with Ellie. We'll talk about Ellie later. I think Ellie was good, but I don't know. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah,
but Joel, for his like characterization, you've got those moments where he's hardy and he's a survivor, and the moment where, you know, that kid walks, when we jumped in 20 years later, the kid he's got the fungus, he's infected, and then the next thing we see is in the back of a truck, and the lady, the girl can't do it, but Joel just picks up the kid and drops him in the fire. And it's, I think, again, for characterization, it's like, this guy's, he's kind of dead to the world. He doesn't really, he's kind of lost it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the scene in the car quickly. That plane crash. Actually, they did the fake out, which I really liked. You're expecting the side swipe from the car.
Yeah, you are, exactly.
And that happens in the game. And I really enjoy that they didn't do that, because it's a little bit that leaves you on your toes and you don't expect. Yeah. And it's such a cinema cliche. It's like, oh, they get side swiped, you know, a truck. Horn. Well,
I thought it was
a bloody plane. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I know, the plane. It worked in the game for me, and it worked on screen as well. Even though you know what's coming, it fucking works really, really well. Yeah. And the fact that they decided to shoot it from the back, exactly like the game, shows how well they managed to execute it, because otherwise you could just go, well, I know exactly how this is going to play out. Yeah. But you're right, a fake out like that. The plane was stunning.
It was.
It was horrifying. And very believable.
I rewatched it as well, that scene, and you see that plane coming for a while, and it's only at the very end you're like, I think Sarah's like, Joel, and they all look back, and it's like, yeah.
So, okay, explain some logic behind it to me. I was talking to Jenny, my wife, about this last night, trying to understand it. Is the idea that this fungus, these spores or whatever the roots, are already embedded in lots of people, like COVID was to a point, and nobody knew they had it, and then suddenly, almost simultaneously, it started coming out? Because otherwise, what possible explanation for that plane crashing is? Because the pilot was suddenly taken over.
I think I have an answer, and I saw this posted on Reddit, so I can't take the credit, but it was they're doing a Last of Us after episode podcast, and Craig,
to rival this? How dare you?
Yeah, I know. This one's obviously better. But so let me just tell you a few things and see if you can make the connection. So in the morning, Joel didn't have pancake mixture, so they couldn't have birthday pancakes. He didn't eat the biscuits or scones, I guess you'd call them, that the neighbour had, because he was on
Where are you going with this?
I know.
This is fascinating.
He was on the Atkins diet, so he didn't want them. Sarah didn't eat the cookies because they were raisin, not chocolate chip. And then Joel forgot the birthday cake. So is the fungus spread through flour or yeast or something like that?
Wow.
And the food supply has suddenly become tainted when all the conditions were right for this fungus to evolve, and suddenly, globally, everyone's fucked. But they didn't have any flour that day.
Wow.
Yeah, well, crazy, isn't it?
That is. I really hope that's the case now.
Yeah. Because when you think back, there is like, there's all these moments with with the food, and it's just you chalk it down to just nice bit of just conversation and kind of world building, but yeah.
Well, that would make a lot of sense with the whole Atkins. In Atkins, you just have meat, right, for the most part. So you would stay away from that kind of thing. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how they pick up with that.
Yeah, so that's obviously not confirmed, but that's a theory someone had. And it's not really a spoiler because, we don't know. It's just a guess. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And I'm sure, we'll find out later. So let's move on quickly just to the scene where Sarah dies. What did you make of it?
I mean, it was absolutely devastating. Again, I felt just as shocked as when it happened in the game.
Yeah.
You just think, why is this man doing it? He's following orders, because of fear. But why? How can you do that when the man's saying to you, "We're not wounded"? At that point, panic. You don't know who to believe. You don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
It's just fire away. Devastating.
Yeah, and the word panic. That's like the perfect word, because that's what you get in that car scene. It's panic everywhere, and this soldier and his captain is probably panicking and everything, and that last moment is heartbreaking. Interestingly, they change a line, which again I kind of appreciated actually, because it didn't take me out. He doesn't say but she's just a kid. He just goes yes.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
And then he shoots her. But in the game, he says, but she's just a kid. And then Joel's kind of like, oh. But again, that might be one of those where it's like, it feels a bit ham-fisted,
I mean, I dug it. I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great
I
way
did.
to play that out.
Yeah.
The thing that I think works better in the game, as a comparison piece, if we're going to compare the two, is the fact that you from memory were playing as her up to that point.
Yeah,
right?
you play as her up to the crash, and then you're carrying her through to that point as Joel. But yeah, you basically you've been Sarah most of the time.
Yeah, and it's hard to. I think they did, like you said, they do a good job of presenting everything that's happening in the show from her point of view up to that point. So I guess it's as close as you can come to that game experience. So again, if I hadn't played the game, I wonder how shocking that moment would have been. If it would have been as shocking as when playing the game, and you're like, "What the fuck? I thought this is our main."
Yeah, I thought it was heartbreaking, that bit anyway. And I you know me, I love a little tear,
weep.
a little weep. And I got there, man. I was like, oh, this is so heartbreaking.
Oh man, perfect.
It does, yeah. So it did work. I loved it. And he's trying to pick her up, and she's in pain, and she's weeping. Yeah. It was heartbreaking, and I mean it's from the game, but what a way to set up Joel's backstory. It's like, this is what this guy's dealing with.
Absolutely. I mean, if anything is going to explain character backstory, it's something like that. It's a moment like that. Like in other shows, you would learn that about him maybe halfway through the first season, or maybe not till the second or third season what happened, but we're already presented with it. Yeah,
or there'd be some sort of like dialogue where they're like, oh, your daughter's been dead for 20 years, and it's like,
some real ham-fisted dialogue. The funny thing was, before that, when they separate from Tommy, that felt like a video game, because they were inside of the car, and it's like, that's a video game moment.
I thought that as well. It's like an invisible walls in games. It's like, you can't go here. That was funny. Okay, so let's move on. So 20 years later, it's 2023. After the global pandemic, the cordyceps fungi has devastated human civilization. Joel lives in a military quarantine zone based in the ruins of Boston, Massachusetts, managed by the Federal Disaster Response Agency, FEDRA. He and his partner Tess support themselves by smuggling and selling contraband to civilians and soldiers. Joel plans to leave for Wyoming in search of Tommy, who he has lost contact with several weeks ago. Joel and Tess purchase a car battery from a local trader, but get double-crossed when the battery is instead sold to the Fireflies, a resistance group fighting against Fedra. Attempting to retrieve it, they find the deal has gone awry, and the Fireflies' wounded leader, Marlene, begs Joel and Tess to take a young Ellie to the Massachusetts State House to hand her off to the Fireflies in exchange for supplies. So that's covering a massive chunk. But let's start with this. What did you make of the world building of post-apocalyptic, Massachusetts?
I thought visually, the production design of it all was incredible. I absolutely believed that well, we're not told what has exactly happened over the last 20 years, but I absolutely believe that based on what we had seen before, this is what it would look like 20 years later. I believed the character, the visual appearance of Joel, haggard, brutish almost, workhorse. I believed it. I find it visually, even though it's very well put together, I find it less engaging because it's so similar after a while, which is the same experience I had with the game, which is as we're progressing in and around that area, everything starts to look the same. So it feels a little hard to bed down on safe locations or interesting settings. You know, I like a few places that are like, here's the iconic bar, here's home, here's the workplace. I like these fixed places. But everywhere we see, every building, every corner they turn, it looks like it could be the same place, just shot from a different angle. Very well put together, but very samey.
Well, I suppose now that they've escaped, and again we'll talk about that later, but I guess we'll be out of there, and maybe it'll be a lot more varied in terms of, you know, where they're going.
Well, you know, what's interesting is the episode ended pretty much where I believe I stopped playing the game.
Oh, interesting.
It was almost like a natural kind of break.
Yeah.
So I have no idea. From episode 2 onwards, I have no idea what the world is like. I just kind of assumed that now we're in 2023. This is what the world looks like almost everywhere.
Right. So they're in this quarantine zone. Is it in the quarantine zone or outside? They're in it, I think, yeah.
They must be in it, right?
In it, that makes sense, yeah. I'm getting my viruses and funguses confused again. But yeah, they're in. So this is, you know, what's left of cities. This is like what, you know, groups of people. That's what it looks like now. But outside of those walls, it's chaos and anarchy almost.
Yeah.
One thing I liked, you see people getting hung. I don't just like that. But in terms of illustrating where we're at now with, you know, society,
how far society's fallen.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice touch. You don't see them getting hung or anything, but it's like, oh shit, we're here. And I think there's a line later. I can't remember who says it, but someone says about outside the walls. You know, there's people, ravagers. You know, these horrible people.
Yeah, raiders.
Raiders, yeah, I think. And
it made me think video game.
Yeah. Do you know
like, right, we're going to be encountering the scavengers and the raiders in a minute.
Exactly. Different enemy types, but you get a feel for the world, and I really liked as well a really lovely touch. It was actually one of my favorite things in the episode, which is strange because it's such a small thing. Joel, when he sells the contraband, the pills, whatever it is, to the soldier, he asks for the bag back, which is such a small thing.
So what's that? Because you can't get your hands on stuff in that world easily.
Yeah, I guess just, you know, there's no production of plastic anymore. So a plastic bag is probably a sought after item, and he's not going to be able to find another one. And I thought just that little touch was like, you know, oh yeah, I need my bag back. And it just kind of, that makes you realize the world they're living in. Because for us, we throw plastic away like it's nothing. And, you know, for him, it's so important.
So that probably lends itself to this sort of thing that I couldn't quite get over related to the battery. So
yeah,
the idea that there is so much at stake by having this battery in a video game, you get it because you need the battery to start the car to move on to the next section, the next level.
Yeah,
and in the show, I'm not convinced they did quite enough for me to believe that battery was super important. It felt like, okay, that happens in the video game. We need to bring it into the show. Okay, he needs the battery to get in the car to get to Tommy. I didn't believe that enough. It felt odd to me that they put so much at stake to go and get this one battery. Like, I feel like they didn't make me feel like the world was so limited at that point that they couldn't have got another battery from somewhere else. You know, it feels like this one guy double-crossed them. Fine, take your losses, go and get a battery from somewhere else, because it didn't feel like it was that hard for them to get in the first place. Clearly it is. In the video game, they're not going to do that because that advances your character to the next point. But in the show, it felt like, I can't help but feel like that is a video game idea that you've just implanted here.
Yeah, I mean, that motivation is direct from the video game. Although I don't think I don't remember. I don't know if you're looking for it to get to Tommy. But in the show, obviously, that's the big reason. That's interesting. It wasn't as much of a problem for me, but yeah, I guess it's because I'm familiar with the game, and I was just like, oh, this is the battery bit, but they're looking for the battery.
Well, I will let them get away with one battery search. If they have to hunt down a second battery at some point in the show,
that's
then
fair.
I'll call bullshit on that.
That's very
You
fair.
can have one battery hunt per season.
So let's move on to Ellie. So we get introduced to Ellie. I'd say I'm 80% in favour. I liked it. I thought she was good. I thought Bella Ramsey was good. I just there's something about like Ellie's character being the young, sort of boisterous in a way, sweary like teenage girl. I'm assuming she's a teenager.
Yeah.
Like it's very much a character, but I don't know. Seeing it like again, it's this thing with real people. It kind of feels a bit almost like cartoonish in a way sometimes, but I think I can get over that.
What in the game is that how she is? I can't remember.
She is, yeah. She's I think they pretty much based her around I forget it. Ellen Page is obviously Elliot Page now, but back then when they were in like Juno and things like that, that's what they sort of based Ellie on. But I mean, a lot of it comes from Ashley Johnson as well, who played Ellie in the game, who is very much that character who's sweary and sweary. Is that even a word? Swears a lot.
No, for sure. I mean, I quite liked the fact that she was swearing a lot, because it reminded me. Actually, we're in an 18 rated show. I assume it would be 18 rated because it was easy to think that we're going to settle into a sort of safe territory here because we've got a kid in it. We're going to walk the line between appealing to kids and adults. So I like that, but I do have an issue with kids generally in film and TV. Very often they can be. I just feel like some directors just don't know how to work with them, and they come across as really precocious, really like ahead of their time. But it felt to me, she felt genuine. For me, the big hurdle was the fact that Joel looks so much like video game Joel. Ellie she didn't look like Ellie in the video game. Obviously, as you say, based on Elliot then Ellen Page, it wasn't. I found it harder to reconcile that at first, because when I saw her chained up, I thought, well, that's not her, is it?
Yeah,
and
I think I don't know if there's necessarily a problem with Bella Ramsey's performance. I think it was more of a personal thing because I'm so familiar with Ellie from the game. So, and it was that thing earlier I was saying where it kind of felt jarring. It felt jarring a little bit at the beginning because it's like I know this character so much,
so well,
strangely more than Joel. But yeah, it wasn't really a problem. It was just one thing I noticed. I did like, actually, the very first scene where she kicks the tray and she counts slowly and she does, puts her finger up, F you. I did like that because that is just classic Ellie. But yeah, I think time will tell how, all of the characters sit with me. But yeah, we'll see after.
I hope that she isn't like the bratty character in the show at first, because we've seen that in a lot of shows and films where you have the reluctant older person saddled with a kid and they're at odds at first, and then they find peace in one another. I don't ever remember Ellie being quite bratty in the game, but perhaps that is because when you're playing as Joel, you're focused on Joel and Ellie's along for the ride at first anyway, as for when I was playing it. I hope they don't go into that irritating phase. Yeah,
I don't think her whole thing is she's got this sort of level of maturity. I mean, she's a kid and she wants to play and she's got imagination and she gets bored and she picks up the book. She wants to, read things. She wants to I've never been outside the wall. It's she's a kid, and I think that's what ends up playing off of. Stubborn, miserable Joel later on. I'm sure that will happen in the show.
That's true. You mentioned it. I think that was possibly my favourite moment from the 2023 footage, is the fact that he even has that book, because I know we can say, it's related to what songs come through on the radio, but I don't think it is. I think it's because the world has gone, no new music is created.
Yeah.
That book is almost like, oh yeah, I remember that song. He may never
Yeah.
hear those songs again for one reason or another because he can't get the devices. So that book is a reminder of the incredible songs that came out that represented a time, emotions, things that probably just don't exist anymore. And for her, possibly never having experienced those songs, her only way to experience music being through a page in a book. Fuck, can you imagine
Yeah,
that?
yeah, exactly. And again, that's that's all more of like this slowly fed to you world building. I think.
Yeah.
You realize that with Ellie, that she's, you know, she didn't even know. I can't remember what the song was. Was it "Wake Me Up"? She was like,
Wake
the
Me Up
words
Before You Go,
Yeah,
yeah.
she said, the words were saying "Wake Me Up" or something like that, and it's like, oh yeah, you obviously just don't know these songs.
No, exactly.
Right, so let's move on. So a few things I'll just whiz by. I thought it was very funny when the Firefly comes up to Joel and he's like, "If you ask me to look for the light, I'll break your jaw." That really made me laugh. We get introduced to Marlene, who, interestingly, the same actress played her in the video game. So that's an interesting thing.
Now, do you know what, Francis?
Yeah.
I really didn't like her performance.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
I wonder if that is because, I don't know her background, that actress's background, but is she maybe just a video game actress? Because it
I don't
didn't
know.
feel good to me.
Okay,
It didn't feel
interesting.
right. It felt like she was in a different show, like a show with lower production values. That's interesting.
I thought she was okay. I don't think she was amazing. I guess we'll find out later on, because she might have some more, I don't know, she might have some more to do, but we'll see.
Yeah, so you're being very careful with your words there.
We'll see how she gets on. One thing I did like in that one of the moments with Marlene, she hands the other lady the slip of paper because she's saying, "Why have we got that kid?" And they don't show us, the audience, what's on the paper. For me, who's obviously played the game, and people who are familiar with the story, we know what's on that paper. But for someone who doesn't know, it really does build to that, oh God, why is this girl so special? And obviously Ellie is one of our heroes. So it's like, I think it really helps to build that sort of excitement and wonder.
So, Okay.
Did you not like that?
No, I did like it. I liked that, but I feel like they did it a disservice later in the episode.
Yeah, so when we find out,
Yeah, because we don't.
I liked it, man. I liked
It's
that
hinted
bit.
at. Okay, right. So I liked the way that they revealed later. You know, when. All right, so we're not mincing our words. When Tess is that her name?
Tess, yeah.
When
She
Tess
picks up
suddenly grabs the reader.
Yeah.
And that's a great moment because it's like, oh shit, she's read. Like Tess is freaking out. So she's infected, if that's the word. I don't know what word gets used for them.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, I was bitten 3 weeks ago. Like no one's ever been like that. That immediately tells us, okay, you're immune to it. You're immune to it. So immediately your mind goes to whatever was written on that paper. Essentially said, this girl is untouchable. She in some way isn't compromised when she's bitten, so she holds the secret. I would have preferred that reveal about her to have come in a few episodes time, and I did know I know elements of that from the game, but I would have preferred that reveal in the show to have come in a few episodes time. However, I guess it's ballsy to lay all your cards on the table in the first episode, because then you're not keeping that secret, which probably most of the audience already know. So it means you've got to do something more in your next episodes to keep the stakes rising, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's interesting. For me, because I know that moment in the game, but I liked that when Tess picks up the device and it's red, and Ellie starts going, "Oh, it was 3 weeks ago. I'm fine." Joel's ears start ringing. We're in Joel's perspective at that point, and what she's saying isn't actually kind of being focused on. It's actually being drowned out, and what we're actually left with is this moment Joel just had where he was in front of a guard pointing a gun at him, and he had this flashback, feelings about what happened with Sarah like rose up, and then he absolutely savagely beats this guy to death, I assume, which is it was he properly beats the shit out of him.
He does, man.
And I think for me, I really liked that they focused on how Joel was feeling rather than what the information was with Ellie. Like, we get fed it and we're like, oh wow, and if you haven't seen the show, oh wow, she must be immune, maybe she holds the secret, like you say. But what's more important was like how Joel was feeling at that moment.
That's a very good point.
And I really liked that they didn't. And the next episode, they're obviously going to focus on it because they've just found out. I'm sure they'll have a conversation about, what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
But it solves the puzzle from earlier of what was on the paper and why Marlene was saying, or Ellie was saying, like, why didn't they shoot me? All this sort of stuff. And it all clicks into place. And for me, I found it really satisfying.
That, hearing you frame it like that, yes, I appreciate that now more than I did at the time. I just think I would have liked maybe not to have had the knowledge previously what the actual story was with Ellie, so that... Is that her name? Have I said that wrong?
Ellie.
Yeah, Ellie.
She introduces herself as Veronica at the start, which is...
And that's what confused me as well. Yeah. I was like, oh, right, it's not Ellie then.
Veronica.
Why are you saying this?
I think she's obviously, I don't know, trying to fake who she is because she doesn't want to be captured. I don't know.
But I guess I feel like maybe if I didn't already know about that, it might have been interesting to work out what was so special about this child. Why has Joel been tasked with getting her out and away through the city? Immediately we now know why he's doing it. This is kind of where it's going to be fun for me now, because this episode has all been about stuff that I've been able to compare to things that I experienced and knew. I don't know where they go now. Like, what lies beyond those walls, I don't really know. So this is a voyage of discovery for me from here on out. So I will be like navigating the world anew. So it will have a different texture, these future episodes.
We've kind of touched pretty much on everything there. I didn't go through the last paragraph, but they find out Ellie's infected and Joel savagely beats the guy, and then they rush off into I think it's like a biological contamination area. So they're now out of bounds where there's going to be more clickers or zombies, which we'll have to deal with in the next episode.
I look forward to seeing them.
What was interesting, Ellie with the code, the radio code she was reading, she was like, oh, 80 is this song. I can't remember exactly what it was. Is that the song that was playing later in that shot? Yeah,
so my understanding was that little note that he had written in that songbook was, if music from the 90s comes out, it means the coast is clear. If music from the 80s comes out, it means danger. So I think when she said to him, wake me up before you go, he suddenly went, shit. And then she said, oh, got you, that means trouble. So at the end, that 80s track comes over the radio. So it means trouble.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Ahead.
Yeah, I liked it. And then the thunder's going, and that was really cool.
It was good. And that left me with a good question. It left it on a cliffhanger of, well, what is the trouble and who has sent that message? Because it's not his, I'm assuming it's not his brother, who's on the radio on the other end transmitting that over.
Yeah.
So it was a nice shot as it panned up, like what looked like looked like a couple of fallen skyscrapers in a way.
That's like a classic image from the game as well, because there's something like directly from the game. It's not really an event that happens, but it's how the game shows you, oh, the world's fucked outside this quarantine zone.
So I'm going to be very interested to see how they now pick up the story, because again, coming back to what I'd fleetingly seen of the game after that, a lot of it felt like it was Joel and Ellie navigating jungle surroundings, fighting and attacking these clickers. And I really hope that what the show doesn't do is slip into that Walking Dead territory of zombies around every corner. We're just going to do a 10-15 minute zombie segment now, and in the next episode here's the exact same segment that you saw before, just from a different angle, because that is why I cried off that show. I was like, this is too repetitive. So I'm hoping that they are going to handle it better than that. Yeah,
I hope so. I never watched The Walking Dead, but when I saw how many seasons there were, I thought that show can't be worth watching. I'm sure there's good seasons, but I don't like things going on too long, man. Like,
it went on for too long, and also I find, and this is a question I had for you, but you've kind of already been saying it in the episode, is I don't actually find, for the most part, zombie films, shows interesting, because I don't find zombies interesting. But you've referenced these things. You've referenced these things as zombies a couple of times. So are they zombies, or are they something else?
So they're not zombies, and in The Last of Us lore, they're not zombies. They don't call them that, but for ease, it's just easier to say zombies, because essentially that's what they are. They're not undead, but they're slowly decaying sort
It's-
of infected
and-
people.
Yeah, and they can run, which is
They
scary.
can run. Yeah. What did you make of like the clicker design? Well, I suppose you haven't really seen them yet, but when that guy's chasing them through to the river, you know, where Joel's carrying Sarah, like what did you make of?
Very scary because he was crashing and smashing
Yeah.
into things as he was chasing. It felt like a infection. It reminded me of 28 Days Later,
Yeah.
which is probably, apart from the early Romero zombie films, which I liked for a different reason, 28 Days Later is probably the only zombie, even though they're not zombies, they're infected, presentation which I actually found scary, again, because of speed and unpredictability, which that guy had.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're just. It doesn't feel like they're dumb, but at the same time, it feels like they're just acting on impulse. And yeah, he runs through the door and smashes into all the stuff because this guy's obviously not in his right mind. He's infected, and he's just going
primal.
after. Yeah, exactly. That's a good word, primal. So yeah, I quite enjoyed them. I thought they were good.
I like that we haven't seen the clickers as we know them from the game yet. We saw, as you said, the imprint on the wall, whatever that was, whether that was meant to be an explosion or just like some organic matter growing out. I like that it was hinted at there because it saves something for the future.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of makes you think, oh gosh, what's happening? I actually think, I'm not 100% sure if this is right, but you know, in these sorts of games, you can pick up notes and you can read little documents. I believe you see a similar thing in the game, and there's a note, and this guy was like, "Oh, I'm infected. I'm going to stay down here." So, correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
but I think there was something like that. The note, and this guy was like, "I've been infected. I'm just going to stay down here and wait it out." And I like it's strange in a way, but in the show they go, "Oh, did he come down here, or was he?" Did he come down here to die, or was he infected already? Blah blah blah. And it's just like it's a nice little connection because we don't know, but for the game players, it's like, oh yeah, that's
a nice little nudge wink.
Yeah.
I was just going to say one other thing that we didn't talk about, which we must, because I think she's great. Anna Torv.
Yes.
as
Oh,
Tess.
love her.
I was very delighted to see her because I don't know if you ever watched it, but I was a huge fan of Fringe, and I thought she was great in that, which was sort of like, it was like X-Files for the new generation, but done better personally. And then she came up in Mindhunter,
Yes.
which
I
I'm
know
sure
from
you're a
that.
massive fan of.
Yes.
Yeah, I think she's great. So to see her in this was very exciting because I had no idea she was involved, and I thought she played the character great as well.
Yeah. I found out she was in it, and obviously, yeah, because I know her from Mindhunter. As soon as I did, I think, yeah, she's great, and I was very excited to see her. But yeah, I thought she was good. I thought hers, and because what I like about it is she feels strong in herself. She's not just Joel's little side piece, you know.
Exactly.
She's like almost managing Joel because Joel can't manage himself, and it's the whole thing where she's talking to Robert and she's like, "Oh, I'll just tell him some guys beat me up. I just want to go. Can we get out of here?" She was really good, and I thought she played it well.
I look forward to seeing more of her.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So yeah, we've overrun. We said they were going to be about 20 minutes, but that's never going to happen. It's about an hour, so that's all right. But just overall thoughts then on the first episode. Are you in for the ride? Did you think it was good overall? What are your feelings?
I'm exactly how I felt when I played the game. I'm in for the ride. I would say I'm pitched at the moment feeling that this is 8 out of 10 level. I need to see more of this 2023 world, what's beyond the perimeters, to see which direction they're going to go in, because I feel like this is one of those pilot episodes where it's very different to what comes afterwards. It's laid the groundwork. Let me see what you're going to build on top of it. I loved the first half. The first half was excellent, just like in the game. But in this 2023 world, impressive as the world building is, I want to see what they're going to do with it. And the jury's out. I'm not saying they did anything wrong yet. I just need to see more to know for sure. But I'm invested in what's to come. What about you?
Yeah, so for me, the problem is I'm always going to love this show, so I have to sort of try and think critically. Because for me, there's this childlike wonder where I see something like, and you mentioned the Uncharted movie earlier. I loved Uncharted 2, but that movie was a load of shite.
I see.
I hated it. But so to see this, and it's like, it's competent, it's well written, the character, I mean, the acting's good, the production design's good. For me, it was just so wonderful to see it. like I say, there were a few jarring moments, but I think that's just a personal thing. I would probably give this a 9 out of 10. Just we won't have to rate them, but yeah.
No.
But yeah, I'm in for the ride. But I do agree, it's now where they go, because this very much felt like a world building episode and character building. We get all the characterization, we understand motivations, backstories, for the most part. We don't get a lot with Ellie, but I'm sure we'll find that out. But it set everything up nicely to continue, and now it's just what we see outside these walls. But I mean, it's been getting great reviews, so I'm sure it's going to.
It has been getting great reviews, and I'm sure it is going to be good. As someone who has played the entire game, can you see how they will naturally be able to make this episodic going forwards and cliffhanger enough moments?
Yeah, definitely. So, well, I mean, the game itself is in chapters, so it seems very easy to me for them to adapt it. And obviously, Craig Mazin for Chernobyl, he's a talented writer.
With Chernobyl.
Yeah, he's a talented guy, and Neil Druckmann's involved as well, who obviously wrote the game or co-wrote the game, good. I think.
Yeah.
I think there's. It's funny because I feel like I know a lot that's going to happen. It's very strange.
I know you obviously do. That's the thing. That's why it's going to be interesting to navigate this going forward.
Yeah, but no, I'm here for the ride. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, and I'm enjoying having the discussion with you about it because it's making me look at things in a different way. I came into this episode feeling like I was going to be harsher on it than I actually ended up being, based on the conversation we were having, and that's because you leveled the ground a little bit there. So well done.
I thought you were going to be harsher as well.
No, I'll save that for episode 2.
Yeah. Feel free. Don't let me.
No. Listen, they have not upset me. I enjoyed it. I'm hooked in. Let's see what they're going to do with episode 2. Let's see what Tommy's doing. What Tommy's doing, maybe, because I have a suspicion of what I think Tommy's doing, and if he's doing what I think he's doing, if they handle it badly, I won't be too happy.
Okay. Right, we'll talk about that, I guess, when the time comes. You'll have to let me know. But yeah, I guess we'll call it a day there. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Make sure you click subscribe. I'm going to be doing a giveaway, which I think I mentioned at the start, so I'll remind you in a moment. But yeah, thanks for watching, and thanks, Ben. Anything you want to plug?
You can come and check out some more of my side hustle stuff, which is the Filmbusters podcast, where Francis has been on it before. It's me and my co-host Paul and Adam. We talk film. Francis has been on it to talk El Camino. Go and check that episode out first, since you like Francis already. You're going to like that one. And if you like what you hear, stick around for it.
Although you're not in that one, so it's kind of
I'm not in that one, which might be a benefit.
Yeah, I listened to your... was it the 2022 breakdown? It was like a 3-hour long special.
Oh yeah, too long.
That was no, I enjoyed it. I had it on whilst I was working, and it's just kind of nice. But
there's one you would like, our most recent one.
Yeah, Zodiac.
We just did Zodiac.
Yeah, it's on the list. I'm gonna put it on at some point. But yeah, anyway, again, thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll catch you next week, hopefully, for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So all the information for the giveaway is on the screen now. It's really simple, guys. All you have to do is follow 3 accounts on Instagram. That's Francis Films YT, Filmbusters Ben, and Filmbusters Pod. So that's my account, Ben's account, and then the Filmbusters podcast account, which is the podcast Ben is on and that I've been a guest on a few times. They're good guys, so they deserve it. And then all you have to do is subscribe to Francis Films on YouTube, and that, of course, is where you are right now. So it's quite easy to just go and subscribe. And for all of this, you can win The Last of Us Part 1 remastered on PS5 and a PlayStation Store gift card, so it's quite a good prize, guys. I will announce the winner after the season finale. Good luck, everyone, and again, thanks for watching so much. I'll catch you next week for episode 2.